Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank all of our panelists for being here with us today. Ms. Roman mentions that on any given night there are some 250,000 Americans who are homeless, and that's before Katrina. So obviously what we're seeing is a crisis in America being made worse with the hurricane. What I would like to get some thoughts on from our panelists is, given the housing crisis that we had before Katrina, given the fact, as I understand it, that in the course of a year some 2.5 million Americans will experience some degree of homelessness, given the additional major problems that Katrina is causing in terms of homelessness, what as a nation are we going to do to finally address the huge housing crisis that we have in America for low-income people? Now, it seems to me pretty clearly, especially with poverty increasing in America, that the federal government is going to have to play a dramatic role if we think that children should not be sleeping out on the street. And again, Katrina makes the need to respond even more dramatic. Let me start off with Ms. Roman. Give us some, if this Congress actually believed that we should not have homelessness, if we actually believed that low-income workers should not be asked to spend 50% of their income on housing, if we actually believed that this country should be building large amounts of affordable housing, and as Mr. Scott said, put people to work at good wages in building that housing. If by some chance Congress thought we should do that rather than giving tax breaks to billionaires, what should we be doing? Ms. Roman?
Well, I think it would be tremendous to use this opportunity that points out what people who are so vulnerable in terms of their housing to any kind of disaster, what kind of assistance they need. And of course, we have millions of people who are at risk of homelessness, 750,000 a night, 3 million a year, who are at risk of homelessness. I mean, those are people who are homeless, and many more millions at risk of homelessness. We need a massive investment in housing to stabilize people. And we're
so you believe that the federal government should be pouring substantial sums of money into addressing the housing crisis?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Mr. Alvarez, what do you think?
Yes, sir. Let me just briefly give you a description of San Antonio. We have we support 25,000 families currently. We have approximately 23,000 families still waiting for assistance, and we
almost as many waiting as are in public housing.
And we received 13,000 evacuees into San Antonio. When they arrived, we only had 75 units of public housing that they could go to.
And I suspect there was resentment on part of some of the locals.
Absolutely. So I think, and NARL's position is that we need to create a production program and focus on housing becoming a fundamental component of decent, safe, and sanitary living anywhere in America.
I should mention to you that I introduced, with over 200 co-sponsors, a National Affordable Housing Trust Fund last year, which unfortunately, despite widespread bipartisan support, did not get through the leadership. But let me ask Ms. Daly, what do you think?
Mr. Sanders, I think we need a lot of tools, as Mr. Alvarez and others have mentioned. We need many, many tools. But the thing that is lacking right now is a production program for very low-income families with children.
Now, my understanding is that we're building almost no low-income housing. Is that am I correct?
For very low-income families with children, it's very low. We're still building some 202 housing. There's still low-income housing being created because of the low-income housing tax credit. But those programs have not produced increases in housing for the lowest income families with children. We don't want to concentrate them in public housing projects. We need to figure out how to do that. Mr. Alvarez's members and nonprofit organizations across the country that have a lot of experience running the 202 program for elderly and disabled could duplicate that experience for families with children, but it won't happen without the federal investment.
Bottom line is we need massive housing production for lower income people. Ms. Miller?
Sir?
Yes. What do you think?
There is definitely a very strong need for affordable housing, not only in our states, but in the entire
I'm sorry,
country.
the time's expired. I need to move on to two members prior to the bell. But
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
Mr. Cleaver and Mr. Clay.
First, is a very short statement. I'm concerned about the environmental relaxation of any environmental laws. I mean, we're setting people up to be flooded again. If we're losing 35 to 40 miles of wetlands a year, and the wetlands soak up the storm waters, we're setting the people up again, and of course I think that's a tragic. But my question is this: having grown up in public housing and having seen in Israel the state of Israel bringing in the Ethiopian refugees and placing them in some prefabricated housing where the Russian immigrants, the Jewish Russians who had come to Israel, were given for all, let's use the term public housing in the three major cities. And then when the Ethiopians came, they moved them in, and there was chaos. Chaos. Don't you believe that if we start bringing the evacuees into communities where there is existing housing, whether it's trailer parks or public housing, that we're going to have some problems, some serious problems? Thank you. Anybody else?
No one wants to tackle that one, Congressman. Let me just real quickly, may I thank Ranking Member Waters and the Chairman for allowing me to sit in on the hearing. Just one quick question for Mr. Roberson. We have far in excess of 250,000 homes destroyed by the hurricane. We have over 1 million people displaced. We have shortages of skilled labor, lumber, bricks, and many other building materials. You have many suggestions for alleviating these problems. We also have high unemployment among the citizens that live in those areas, many of them skilled construction laborers, plumbers, electricians, and the like. Will they be hired? Will you have a priority on hiring with the requisite skills that you are looking for? Go ahead.
Certainly we would be, we're always looking for the opportunity to hire skilled labor in our factories, and I don't know whether these people will be located adjacent to be able to be hired, but we're always looking for qualified people. And I think what I was trying to get to earlier today but ran out of time is that as you look at the rebuild of the Gulf South region there and in the city of New Orleans, one of the things manufactured housing can bring to the table to help assist that area is that because you can have the combination of off-site and on-site construction with product that is aesthetically suited for the environment that it's going to be placed in, that is certainly capable in a factory-built environment, because you can then utilize the resources of local employment for some of those trade areas, and you can use less skilled labor because part of that trades move into a factory environment, that we can speed up the process, that we can help people get into housing with more affordability, and that we can help New Orleans recover faster if there is a role played by manufactured housing, and we look beyond the fact that we all think that a house trailer is what we don't want. This industry has tremendous capabilities to build product that is very suitable, and we can do it quickly, and we can do it more affordably than site built. One of the major problems, though, that we still need in that regard to do it is we have to look at two issues. One are outdated zoning restrictions in many areas, and another is we really need Congress to look at sponsorship through the GSEs and FHA financing to just give us equal footing with site builders. You know, the GSEs were started to give priority for affordable housing. Sure. We make the most affordable housing, but we've got the most onerous underwriting standards, the toughest appraisal standards. We're discriminated against. It's easier. We got people today that can't buy a manufactured home that they'll finance a site-built home. Something needs to change about that, and I don't know how to do that unless Congress steps in, but I believe if you'll look at those issues, you can see manufactured housing can play a vital role over time to the rebuild of that Gulf Coast and to solving a lot of the other affordability issues for America in general. We've raised all these issues, and we've got a big piece of the pie that needs to be looked at, but it's being overlooked.
Thank you for that response. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Waters.
Thank you. I want to thank the panel. And again, we were going to try to get an answer today. Trying to get an answer today on the numbers, I think, is a very valid point. And we want to work with you too in a rapid way with your issues. I thank you so much for your time. And when we come back from the 2 votes, we'll go on to panel 2. Thank you to everyone.